Hello, my fellow listeners. I'm back to give you all a part two of this What If. On What If, Carrie from the Stephen King book Carrie met Andrew, Matt, and Steve from the 2012 movie Chronicle. Now, from my first chapter, I felt like I've established how Carrie and Andrew's mornings are, with their parents, as well as everything they're forced to go through at school on a daily basis. But in this chapter, it's now going to focus on the general abuse under their parents' hand. What they're honestly forced to go through at home, not just at school. Admittedly, this chapter and the next one are not really important per se, but I'm trying to establish as best as I can what these characters' lives are like, as well as trying to explain as, best I can, how the characters get their powers, how they discover them, how they differ from each other, and, that kind of thing. But if anybody has actually seen the 2012 movie Chronicle, or has even heard of, Carrie, read the Stephen King novel, or seen any of the remakes, I personally like the 2013 one. Although I was told, I heard, not told, but I heard that the one from 1976 was actually the best way to interpret the story. But I'm pretty sure you guys would rather me just go ahead and get into this story. So, by all means, let's get it started.
Ch2, a day better than most. The last bell of the day rang, then Andrew took out his camera and turned it back on. Well, school is over and I still have enough time to see the few things I never got to show on camera. Like over there, that's the principal's office, and that guy standing right there, that's Principal Morton. Andrew said, zooming in on the principal. Then when he zoomed out, he noticed his gym teacher talking to a redhead who seemed timid and frail. That woman talking to that redhead, her name is Ms. Desjardins, she's about the only teacher I like here. I don't know who that girl she's talking to is. Andrew said in a low voice. Then Andrew felt someone nearly push him over, dropping his camera as a very familiar voice sarcastically said, "Oops." Andrew angrily turned around to see Wayne and his friends laughing. "Dickheads," Andrew angrily said in a low voice. As he was about to point his camera back at the office, he heard a loud crashing noise from the office. Then the redhead quickly sat on the bench next to the office door. At first, Andrew didn't think very much of it, then he saw Ms. Desjardins kneel and say some things to her, and the redhead quickly nodded and looked down. Then she got up and walked away with a sad expression on her face. When she walked past Andrew, he was curious. "Hey, Ms. Desjardins," Andrew called out, trying to catch up with her. Is there something wrong?" Andrew asked. "No. It's just, the girls in the locker room were picking on someone and it's just been a bad week for me," Ms. Desjardins said with stress clear in her voice and on her face. "Sorry, I understand," Andrew said in an understanding tone. "Is she going to be okay?" Andrew asked, concerned. "Huh?" Ms. Desjardins asked. "Is that girl the one that the girls in the locker room picked on?" Andrew asked. Her face briefly grimaced from stress to anger. "Yeah," she said as calmly as she could. "Will she be okay?" Andrew asked again. "I don't know," she answered sadly. "I hope so," she said with a little hope coming into her voice. "Well, I'll see you Monday," she said before walking off. Andrew felt a little conflicted. A part of him wanted to go to Matt's car so that he could get home, but another part was telling him to try to say something to her. After a short internal argument with himself on what he should do, he decided to try and say something to her, mainly cause he was in no real hurry to go home. On the bench with Carrie. She was restlessly fidgeting on the bench. "This day sucks," she said in her head. "And it's all because of Chris Hargensen." Then her thoughts went in a dark direction as she thought of Christine's face being eaten off by a bunch of rats and screaming in pain. Hey you! Two boys next to her called out. Then one of them makes a gesture to his mouth and sticks his tongue in his cheek. Carrie grimaced in disgust while the two boys were laughing. Carrie quickly closes her eyes and tries to imagine that she was anywhere else, but she couldn't imagine any other place. She hated home as much as she hated school, so all she felt she could do was just pray for someone decent enough to come along and treat her like a normal human being. Hi, a boy with a dark blue zip-up hoodie said. She looked up and saw that he had brown hair, light blue eyes, a camera in his hand, and a blue and brown backpack. For a short moment, there was an awkward silence. I'm Andrew," he said, holding his hand out to her. Carrie smiled a little. "I'm Carrie," she said, shaking Andrew's hand. "I heard about what happened in the girls' locker room. And I'm sorry," Andrew said sincerely. Carrie nodded her head and looked back down again. Andrew, running out of things to say, asked if she was okay. She nodded again. There was awkward silence once again for a moment. "Well, Then Carrie abruptly stood up with a somewhat fearful expression on her face. "Mama," she said in surprise. "What are you doing talking to this boy, little girl?" she asked in a low but angry voice. "We weren't talking, I just came to say hi, ma'am, that's all," Andrew interrupted. "Let's get to the car, little girl." As they both walked away, Andrew was questioning whether talking to her was the right approach. Then he looked to Carrie, who looked back and gave a thankful smile. Andrew also smiled. Andrew quickly walked away feeling an enormous amount of pride building up. And for the first time in a long time, he started feeling good about himself. In a car with Carrie and her mother. While they were driving back home, there was silence for a while. "I'm sorry you had to come to school today, Mama," Carrie said. Then she put her hand on Carrie's and said nothing. As they pulled into the driveway, Margaret said in a low voice, "Let's go inside, little girl, you need to come inside with me." "Mama, why didn't you tell me?" Carrie asked. "I was so scared, Mama, I thought I was going to die," Carrie said. "They laughed at me, and they threw things at me." Margaret quickly got out of the car. "We'll talk about this inside, Carrie," Margaret said before she shut the door. Carrie got out of her side of the car and stood up. "No. I want to talk about it right here, I don't want to go inside with you," Carrie said anxiously. Margaret said nothing. Just went inside the house. Carrie sat back in the car, afraid of what her mother might do to her once she goes inside. Then she jumped up when she heard something hit the window. It was a little boy on a bicycle screaming and chanting, "Crazy Carrie! Crazy Carrie, the boy kept saying as he pressed his nose up against the window. Then she tilted her head, and the boy flew back, tumbling into the grass. The boy got up, looked around him, then before giving a fearful glance at Carrie, he got on his bike, and quickly rode off. In the house. As Carrie went inside and put her backpack on a chair next to the sewing machine, she heard a noise coming from upstairs. When she went upstairs and opened the door to her mom's room to see that it was her mom banging her head against a wall. "Mama, stop it!" Carrie said. "Mama!" she shouted, trying to snap her mother out of her prayer-like trance. Margaret finally stopped. "I don't want to upset you," Carrie said. "So you're a woman now?" Margaret whispered. Carrie nodded. "When God made Eve from the rib of Adam." "Then what, Carrie? Say it," Margaret kept saying. But Carrie shook her head. "No, Mama, just talk to me," Carrie said. And she was weak. Margaret said, "Just talk to me, please. I just want you to talk to me," Carrie begged. "And the first sin was the sin of intercourse, say it, Carrie," Margaret demanded. "And the first sin was the sin of intercourse, Mama," Carrie repeated. Why didn't you just tell me, Mama?" Carrie asked. "God visited Eve with a curse, and the curse was a curse of blood," Margaret said in a low voice. "I'm not going to say that," Carrie said. "That's not even in the Bible, it doesn't say that anywhere," Carrie pointed out. Then Margaret put her hands together and muttered, "Oh Lord, help this little girl see the sin of her days and ways, show her if she had remained innocent, to the curse of blood would not have come upon her as it did Eve." "I'm not Eve, Mama. I didn't sin," Carrie said loudly in frustration. "You showered with those other girls. You had lust-filled thoughts," Margaret said. "Everyone has to shower, Mama. Everyone. That's just how things are at school," Carrie said. "Now you must be different, because he can see you." "I don't want to be different, Mama. I want to be like them. I want to be just like them," Carrie said, her voice getting higher as she spoke. "He can smell the sin on you, and he will punish you," Margaret said loudly. Margaret struck her daughter in the head with her Bible and Carrie fell to the floor. "I will not let that come down upon you, Carrie. I will not. Lord have mercy," Margaret said, speaking low again. "No. The Lord is good. His unfailing love endures forever, and his faithfulness continues throughout all generations." Psalms 100 verse 5. Carrie quoted. "I'm going to keep you away from that school," Margaret said. "You can't, Mama," Carrie said loudly. "We'll pray. We'll pray together. 'Cause there are women that are weak, wicked, sinning souls," Margaret kept saying as she who was following Carrie downstairs. Carrie went all the way downstairs, then she turned around to face her mother. "You didn't tell me," and they laughed. "I didn't sin, you did," Carrie said almost angrily. "I did not," Margaret whispered. "I did not sin." Margaret slowly walked downstairs, while Carrie eyed her fearfully. As Margaret slowly walked to the closet door underneath the stairs, she opened the door and ordered Carrie to go in. "No, Mama," Carrie said fearfully as she slowly backed away. "Go to your closet and pray," Margaret whispered. Carrie shook her head as she kept backing away, staring into the closet of all the religious artifacts and pictures that scared her. "You pray," Margaret whispered again. "No," Carrie simply said. Then Margaret quickly grabbed her daughter by her shoulders, pushing her towards the closet. "No. No. Get off me, Mama. Stop it," Carrie shouts. "Go. Go. To your closet and pray for forgiveness," Margaret demands. "No. No, Mommy," Carrie begs. "You pray," Margaret thundered. "No, Mommy, please," Carrie said before Margaret shoves her in the closet and locked it behind her. "You pray, little girl. Pray for her forgiveness," Margaret demanded through the door. "Mama, let me go. Let me out," Carrie shouted while banging on the door. "Mom. Mom. Mom," Carrie kept calling out. But Margaret kept clawing at the scars on her arm. "God, You suck, Carrie said as she banged on the door. But to both their surprise, a long rip appeared on the door, making both Carrie and Margaret jump back in surprise. As Carrie prayed for forgiveness, she closed her eyes to all the religious pictures and artifacts of Jesus dying on the cross. Though she was praying for forgiveness like her mother demanded, it was more of a self-loathing prayer than it was a prayer for forgiveness. Carrie tried to think of something in her life she was thankful for, but found that she couldn't. And she was almost going to cry, till she thought of the nice boy that said hello to her. Unlike most people, like those boys on the bench that sat next to her that makes snide remarks and inappropriate gestures to her, that boy treated her with some decency and kindness. Other than Miss Desjardins at school, no other student has ever treated her with such decency and respect. And for the first time, possibly ever, she began to feel warm and hopeful inside. Carrie began to smile a little as she thought, I guess today was better than most, all things considered. Thanks to that boy at school. What was his name? Andrew, I think? Yeah, I think that was it. Later at Andrew's house, Andrew was smiling as he turned a bright light on and off. Then Andrew put it on top of his camera and turned it on again, smiling again. Then as Andrew turned to his computer, he clicked on an SD file revealing a window of all the footage he recorded that day. He looked over the footage of him, walking through the hallway talking about his school, the footage of him getting beer bottles thrown at him by a couple of guys across the street from him, some footage of him recording his sick mother on her bed, footage of being in his cousin's car on his way to school, and even some footage of his cousin telling him to go to a party with him at Haven Hills and to leave his camera at home. Then eventually he paused on an image of the red-haired girl he talked to at school. As Andrew stared at the freeze frame, he couldn't help but smile. Well, I guess compared to most school days, today was a pretty good day, all things considered. He thought to himself. Then his door swung open and Andrew looked over his shoulder to see his dad walking straight in, and stood right next to him. What do you wa? He hit Andrew in the face, picked him up, and slammed him on the floor. When I say open that door, you open the door, you got it? Finish your goddamn homework, he said in a low, cold voice as he walked out. Andrew sat back up in his chair. Then Andrew, already feeling tears coming on, reached over and turned the light off on the camera. He wishes so bad that he could run away. But his mother was sick and he cared about her, way more than his dad. And then Andrew let out a sigh of anger and frustration as he reached over and turned off his camera, feeling hopelessly trapped.
End of chapter 2. Yeah, last chapter I've accomplished what their lives are like in the morning, and also what their school lives are like when they're being picked on by their own particular bullies. But here in this chapter, I'm establishing, well, hopefully have established well, how their home lives are like, having to put up with the abuse of their parents. Well, I do believe that I have done well. And I also decided to switch up the voice, because last time it was a guy that was speaking who sound a little middle-aged a bit. Well, this time I decided to try and, add a female voice, considering most of this chapter was actually about Carrie a bit. And also in the third chapter, I'm going to go ahead and do a different voice on that one as well. But I also would like to point out that it is going to slow down a bit, but I promise you I am working on making this better. This isn't just about the fact that they're going to discover that there is a fourth person out there that knows telekinesis. This is also about other things. And I promise you, onward, this story will get a little bit more friendship-like, with more romance and friendship, and some drama and plot twists. So hopefully you're enjoying yourselves, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, especially if you want to see more. And I would also like to point out that I didn't just do a what if, I also made some other videos. Those videos are shorter and kind of more my speed. This what if thing I'm starting is actually kind of new to me, so forgive me if some of this does not seem very right. I'm still learning. But hey, until next time, I'll see you guys.